only wants you to make good beer. And have fun hanging out with your friends. Here's Dono. Today on the program, a collaboration brew of sorts. Now this says POG, pale, and the reason it says that is POG is a type of imperial yeast that is a, wait for it, single isolate Kveik. And we can talk more about that later because I am not using POG. Chip is making the exact same beer with the exact same ingredients just on his system. He is using POG. He is going to ferment it a little bit warm. I am just using the good old flagship, commonly referred to as the Chico strain of yeast. So in this recipe, I can show you, so they have it for 6 gallons. And they want you to get around 1059. And so we were sent 12.5 pounds of pills for each of us, but I am just going to use 11. I am using this 2 pounds of malted oats and a half pound of Crystal 15. And I will tell you what, good people, I don't know if you've ever used malted oats, but I had to go look it up because I was having trouble crushing them. And long story short, they are a pain and a lot of people don't want to mess with them. I did have to adjust my mill. I did get them crushed, but it was a pain in the butt. Anyway, the other thing that is cool is all of the malt comes from this maltster root shoot. The reason that is, or one of the reasons, is if you look at this dude here, his name is Hayward, and he used to work at Northern Brewer. And I remember talking to him when I would go to the retail location, and Chip worked with him, and he works at this root shoot, and he sent us the malt. So we have a lot of things going on. We've got 2 different yeast strains. So assuming we can do a similar job of brewing the beers, the difference will be the yeast. So we will compare them when they're done. I think we're both brewing tomorrow, so that's kind of fun. I'm actually collecting my first runnings right now. So then I'll do a sparge, and that is all going all right. The other thing is this beer hardly has any bittering hops. I don't know if I went over that. I don't think I did. It has the smallest bit of a magnum for bittering. There we go, boil. But then Whirlpool at 200, 4 ounces of Mosaic. And then there's a 3 ounce of Mosaic of a dry hop. So we had a pound. Chip has 8 ounces, I have 8 ounces. In theory, we're each going to use about 7 ounces. And here is my yeast. And I don't think I'm going to do a starter because I'm hoping to get more like 1059, 1060, low 1060s and not too much bigger. And I think this should be sufficient. If it was going to be, you know, much more than 1060, 1065 plus, you know, then I would do a starter. It looks like here 1042. So just looking at their gravities. But at any rate, I think it should be okay. I will aerate. So everything is rolling. I am doing the wort production tonight as I usually do, and then in the morning I'll get up and start boiling it. Depending on the total volume, I may have to boil some in some pots on the stove like I do. But we will get this going, and hopefully we will both make a yummy beer and do a side-by-side tasting. 0.15 ounces of hops is about 4 grams, and as you can see, that is not too much. So not a lot of bittering hops here, but it will be quite a hop stand. And then what I'm doing here is I've got a gallon of wort split into 2 pots. This one's already, turn that down. And I just boil this down. I don't know how much it boils down. Maybe it gets down to about half of the volume. And then I add it back into the main batch. It has been an hour, so I just killed off the flame. Check this business out. 4 ounces of Mosaic. A lot of hops. And here we go on this. So, we will, they say 20 minutes for whatever reason. I always do 15, but maybe I'll go ahead and give it the 20 minutes of a hop stand slash Whirlpool. Woo, that is just a lot of green, gooey, resiny goodness. There we go. That's a Whirlpool for you, folks. Here is the yeast, and I sanitized the top of it. I just opened it. I hopefully have everything all loosey-goosey in there. So I'm not making a starter, as you can see. We're just pitching it in there. I took a quick look at the gravity, and it looks like it's going to be around that 1060 mark, which is what I was aiming for, but I'll get a definitive reading of that. Here we are about 20 hours after pitching the yeast. I think there was a little bit of krausen last night, but there is more now. And it is looking like it is 62, which is just about perfect. The lower end of the range is said to be 60. And once it gets going here, see, that's funny. These lids, you may all know, like just right now, I screwed this on a little bit harder. It was on there tight, but there was no activity in here except maybe a little pressure. And I saw that there certainly was fermentation going. And so just tightening that up and getting the seal 100%, like now look at it. That all just started just this moment. So anyway, it's off to a good start. I did do the pure oxygen. I did not make a starter, but it should ferment fully, I hope. So here is 84 grams. It said 84 now. It went under, but you get the point. Basically 3 ounces of the hops. And I am going to try a hop bag and marble trick. Got these marbles from Chip actually, so let me go figure that out. I am sanitizing the marbles, the hop bag, and even a little plastic tie to really get it securely sealed. The beer has been going pretty strongly for, well, since that's Tuesday today. I took a reading, it was 1028, and started at 1062, so it's, I don't know, halfway or so, and not really at the exact tail end, but if I didn't do it today for this biotransformation effect, it could get to be too late, and I don't want to do that. And it was, what, 64, 66. So, not super cool, but not, you know, overly warm. So, let me get these hops bagged up. Alright, here goes nothing. I got the cap off, and this sanitized thing here is 3 ounces of hops. And it's tied off nicely. You know, I could just put them in here loose. Oh, they're sinking. Maybe I'll do just a little dippy dip for a minute. But then I don't always have the best luck with keeping them out of the keg. I do have a filter on my siphon tube. I've experimented with using like these hop bags over the tubes. I've done different things over the years. I just have not always had the greatest luck. I've heard of cold crashing and getting all the stuff to settle to the bottom, but I don't really have a way to do the cold crashing all year round. Of course, if I have it winter temps, I have coldness. But anyway, let's watch these sink down. Is that what they're gonna do? No. Not at the moment. That's funny. There must be a little air in there. Well, I'll decide if I want to poke it down there. Otherwise, the hops are in the bottom and the marbles are in the bottom, so they're in the beer. So actually, that's probably okay. They're not floating on the top. And, you know, this is even just like a bonus step because I already did the 4 ounces of a hop stand in the Whirlpool situation. So this is just sort of like more flavor and aroma. So I'm going to try to...
So you're going to do the classic?
Yeah, man. The classic.
We both do one bit. All right, crossover event of the century.
So, wow, that really looks a lot different this way.
Yeah?
Do you think so? Does yours?
A little bit.
Like yours, I don't know why that is. I mean, yours, wait, they look more reddish. Even though when
yeah, it looks a little bronzy, for sure.
It's probably just a light reflection
clear.
thing.
We're here in the garage of Chop and Brew down the block from the Brew lab of Don O.
Yes.
We have 2 cameras set up, so we might be looking at either or. I guess
Right.
Don will probably look at his. Instead of doing 2 separate tasting notes on our split batch experiment, we thought we would just shoot it all at once and then divvy it up. So this is pretty awesome. Brew day was less than a month ago, for sure. I can't remember the exact day.
Yeah. Well,
It was in keg for me like the 25th, so it must have been like the 20th. Anyway, this is exactly what we said we weren't going to do, is like recap the entire thing. So we're here, we have the 2 beers. Bottom line, they're very different.
they are pretty different. We were just saying that I would have thought they would be more similar because everything was the same except for the yeast. But then he came right along and made the point like, well, that's the point of the experiment, is yeast can make a big difference.
Right.
I mean, how many times have you ever been able to drink? You and I have done it. We're like, so we made 5 different version 1 gallon batches out of something with 5 different yeasts out of the same wort or cider or whatever, and
Right.
it can make a big difference. One of the most noticeable differences that we got to talk about right off the bat is the clarity.
Yeah.
As in,
Mine
the
got
Kveik adjacent strain got clear,
the pod.
pretty clear.
Yeah, and it was like clear, like, I mean, it's gotten clear literally every day, but it was about as clear as it was eventually going to get after about 3 days in the keg. Like, I had to blow out about a pint. Actually, had some issues. I had to clean out a poppet a few times
Right.
because of the dry hop, even though I didn't pick that much up and transfer.
And mine is not clear, and it has been in the keg probably almost a couple of weeks. I probably almost certainly did not do any gelatin because I normally wouldn't for a ale beer like this, and second of all, I don't have any. So that's, a couple of reasons. But I am curious.
Yeah.
It's Imperial Flagship, which I'm sure I've used, and I've also used the other companies' strains of the Chico Ale strain, and it's been one of my favorites, and it often gets clear. So the only thing that's different from this beer than many other beers I've made is the malted oats. But those malted oats are in Chip's beer.
Right.
So it didn't, unless it is something with the yeast and the oats, but again, that's speculation. Also, there's a lot of hops, which can cause a hop haze, but again, Chip's is clearer. So
I
don't know
cold
what's
crash.
up with that.
I mean, granted, being in a keg is considered cold crashing, but I true cold crashed in
Right.
primary for about 2 or 3 days in my fridge. I even noticed that like hop tube shrunk during that cold crash because it's doing what it's supposed to do. So you never know. We've both gone over our recipes separately. We've both gone over the hop bills. We will recap just real quick. Mine was 1063 to 1010. which is about 7%-ish alcohol. His was 1062 to 10006. So I can't remember, 7.3, 7.2. It's 7 more plus than 7.
Not much, but yeah,
right.
similar.
The original recipe we got was 1059 to 1012. So clearly we got higher and both got lower. He talked about mashing at 155. You did not do that. I started there, but it dropped real quick in my brew in a bag setup, so that could be part of that. I will say, for not having brewed actually at home in quite a while, I've really enjoyed having my beer specifically, and now I like having them side by side because I get, with your beer, more of that malt, more of this kind of like honeyed toast. They talk about this earthiness, this graininess of the malted oats, which I do feel like you get. The only other beer that I know has had a decent amount of malted oats is those Koits, the Dutch kind of historic style, and they have that kind of slickness and earthiness.
I can't remember.
But the Pog in mine pops this pineapple-y, tropical, almost this kind of creamy, like orange sickle. And then when I pop over to yours, I almost like it that it's not quite that estery, because I'm like, oh yeah, malted hops. Borderline like hazy, but not really.
Yours, I get a couple things that I don't get in mine, and one is a little bit of a tangy citrus note, so maybe more like a tangerine, something that has a little bit of a tang, not a sour like a lime, grapefruit, lemon, and then also something that I don't know if it's from the yeast, but a little bit more of a huskiness of a grain flavor. So I don't know that it's actually literally the husk of the grain, but there's more of a note like that that I don't get in mine, and that could be for a couple reasons. It could be that I have other flavors going that if it is there, it doesn't show as much. It could be my process, which is my batch sparge process. I don't know if that, I mean, in theory, that could give you a slightly different work composition because it's a little bit of a different process, although it's similar.
To reiterate, for anyone watching Don's channel, mine was a brew in a bag in the garage, brew in a bag mash, pulled out, drained, hand sparged with maybe like a gallon of water. So they are two different processes as well.
Yeah.
Any other like things you learned doing this? It sounds like, I feel like that's the only thing.
I don't know why.
Yeah,
I don't know why. I mean, I'm real curious about the haze in this because like I said, I've used imperial yeast, lagers, and ales, and they often get clear. I mean, even the bloody wit beer yeast gets clear when you don't want it to get clear. Yeah, eventually. So I mean, maybe this will get clear with time, but also the hop character and the aroma will get less faster than some other beer that's not really so hop forward. I think they're not as similar as I thought. I suppose it would be like the Brewlosophy guys. They have one guy making 10 gallons of wort in the same system and then splitting the yeast. So that would be interesting. If one of us would have done that, would we have the same clarity result? Like, is that 100% just the yeast? I feel like
for sure. I think between this like crushing pills, then oats, and then oats, and then pills, and then the all grain versus. I mean, you have many clear beers. I don't know.
Oh yeah, always.
Leave that in the comments below.
Usually.
Why is Don's beer? I will say it's cleared up even since we took it to Unmapped earlier this week.
I disagree. I still think it's the same. It's the same. It's not clear at all.
Like, yeah, but it was not. I feel like it was like
no, it's the same.
Haze bomb.
No, it's the same.
That's my eyes. That's my progressives getting whacked.
It's the same anyway.
Let's give some shout outs, and then as these warm, we could come back to like one more last impression. Root Shoot, our boy Hayward, who we know from the way back as assistant manager, either way, a key player in the old Northern Brewer St. Paul store. He now works for Root Shoot. He is the one who boxed up these malts and sent it to us for Dono to have a headache of a day milling. Yep. Mike Myers, the head maltster at Root Shoot, also kind of gave us a lot of the descriptors, ways to use it, even though we didn't follow his lead because Imperial Yeasts Rory gave us a recipe from when Pog came out about 5 or 6 years ago. This was kind of their like pilot recipe to push it. So Imperial for sending us both the flagship and the Pog, and just ongoing support of at least my ongoing efforts, and you've benefited.
Definitely.
Shrapnelly.
Tangentially.
I
give
secondarily
them shout outs as well because I appreciate the yeast hookup.
And I will even give a shout out to Right Brew, man. This is a homebrew shop in Wisconsin that if you live in the Twin Cities can get you stuff the next day. We ordered our Magnum and our Mosaics from them, and it literally showed up speedy delivery the next day. So this is kind of like a fun lo-fi no-buy for us, and then just kind of fun to like kick the tires. I will say this is probably not the recipe I would test a side-by-side yeast with.
Oh.
I'm interested that they did this to test Pog because they knew it was kind of a hop supportive Kvike strain.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, a little bit, even though these turned out different, I would have a more stripped down recipe if I wanted a true side-by-side, because like 7 ounce of Mosaic is gonna do a thing on its own. It's almost like an American Blonde could have been fun, but
right. Do you think that there's anything due to the yeast that you like better or worse from the yeast point of view, or is that too hard of a question?
No, I would say...
Or is it just because it's just different?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, this is almost kind of like those stylized yeast in a way, where if you want to make hop notes that we generally attribute to hops, but with yeast, and save some money on hops and volumes of hops, like this Kvike strain does a tropical ester thing for sure. I mean, we can taste it. Yours is more piney, fruity, malty. Mine is just like fruity, creamy. The malt gets a little hidden, even though I can taste similar pieces of the malt between them. That toastiness, that honeyness. I think that yeast would be good for someone that wants to get a tropical note, maybe without bombarding it with tropical hops. Exactly.
That's possible. I know that the Kvike strains can give a little bit of that orangey character. I mean, the thing about the Kvike strains that is, like, for me, the number one selling point, if you're not trying to make a traditional Norwegian farmhouse beer, but you're just brewing your beer, is the timetable and the temperature tolerance. I mean, like, that's just like an incredible gift, really, for people that don't have temperature control, and you can ferment in the 80s or higher, and it's not going to make your beer taste like garbage. Like, that's just
this fermented
amazing.
Between 85 and 90. Because of how quick it fermented, I was dry hopping it, brewed on a Sunday. I think I dry hopped it Tuesday evening at like 18% left of fermentation, whereas you did it the same night because you're going out of town. So we
I have it in my notes. It was like 10:28 or something. I don't remember.
The point is, this thing was done in 4 days for sure. With like a day, because I do the dry hop in mid fermentation, which I nudged Don to do, both because he was leaving town and just because that's kind of the way I've come into doing dry hops now, is in mid fermentation. But yeah, this thing finished super fast.
Yeah.
You kegged yours faster.
The Mosaic hop is also an interesting choice because it's a little bit, I will say, it is not my favorite hop. It is a common hop. Sometimes it's almost like a featured hop in a beer. You know, sometimes like Mosaic Pale Ale, whatever. It's like it's not like a combo like so many hops. It's not my favorite hop. I have enjoyed this beer. It has a very nice hop aroma and flavor, moderate bitterness. Not as bitter as some of the beers I make, but I don't know, what do you think about the Mosaic hop in general?
Well, one thing I was going to say is, considering how almost smash-ish like this recipe is, one of my favorite local beers, 300 IPA, is like a Mosaic showcase, and then the beer I lived off of recently when I was in Cape Coral, Florida, Mosaic IPA at Scotty's, neither of those taste anything specifically like this. I think because of the yeast, and they don't really even taste like this. So it comes back to the idea of why they called it Mosaic. I think, I mean, we were dropping nothing until Whirlpool and then dry hop.
7 ounces of hops in a 5-gallon batch is
Yeah.
a lot, kind of a lot.
The question is if you had done like bittering with it, and then kind of like an unmapped, this like 60, 45, 30, you know what I mean? Like, you get different things out of this hop, apparently, is what people say, depending on when you use it. So you can't really expect the same result for using it in boils or whirlpools or dry hop. So, to your point, this tastes very different than 2 other beers that I know that lean heavy on Mosaic, but I couldn't tell you 100% how they use it. So it's kind of the mystery grab bag, right?
I feel like when I drink mine, it does ring familiar with some other Mosaic beers I've had. And I have made 2 kind of all Mosaic beers in my history of brewing to try this hop and to see what it's like. And I think I've always kind of come down like I don't think I will make another all Mosaic beer on my own. Yeah. But Chip had this idea, and
Rory.
It was free.
Rory had this idea.
Like, let's do it. Let's just give me the stuff. I'll brew it up. Why not?
No, I agree with you. I feel like Mosaic, I mean, as I'm looking at this like wall of can labels over here, I feel like Mosaic gets cushed up with other hops a lot. Like Sabro, Sultana, even the C hops. I feel like sometimes people work Mosaic in with other C hops to give it just a little twist that makes it different than pine and grapefruit. I mean, in the end, happy to have this beer. It's almost gone because I've been sharing it a lot, and just because of my system, I didn't get that much in the keg, which I'm fine with. You're happy? Not happy? Like, are you eager to let this one kick it for a minute? And see what
no, I mean, I am drinking it a little harder now than I do if I have beers that are going to be just as good in 3 months, because this beer will not be just as good in 3 months. So I'm drinking it a little bit harder now, and I do enjoy it. I do wish it was clear. I don't really know why that is, but it has a nice aroma, nice flavor. Price was right. I like it.
It costs $3.50.
Propane. Yeah, didn't have to pay for much.
That's a good point. With the beer that's all Whirlpool and dry hop, you might almost not, you probably wouldn't expect it. On paper, you wouldn't even expect that beer to be great 2 months later, because we are literally stockpiling it with hops on the back end, whereas a beer that you would think would stick around a little better would be more at 60, more at 30.
Well, for me, it's the adding hops anytime post chilling. If I do a hop stand like I do on my India Pale Lagers, so many beers, I do this hop stand, then I chill, then I ferment. Those beers will be equally as good like months down the road. Whereas if I add hops when it's fermenting, after it's done fermenting, those beers will be really nice for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and then they start getting not as nice. Now I also don't do all this purging of CO2, low oxygen transfers, blah blah blah. I think if I did, I could extend the life of those somewhat, but I don't do that. So this beer, I gotta drink them. And that's a wrap.
That is a wrap. Alright, thanks for joining us. Check out links in both of our video descriptions to our other ones brew days if you want to see how very different we brew 2 blocks away from each other. This was fun. It was the first time I think we've done this. I think we've ever brewed the same recipe, let alone maybe like our ciders are the closest thing where we go get ciders from bulk buys.
We've each done like a wit beer, a half of ice or something, but not like this intentionally with the exact same ingredients.
Let us know if you want to see more of it in the comments below.
Alright, thanks for watching. Catch you later. How long was this bloody video?
We need a new sponsor.
Good Lord, 24 minutes?
Yeah.